All right, we are here at week 6 of It's Business Time with Mr. Chris Malony from the Koh Show. Definitely want to welcome here. And also, before we get started, I do like to give a quick shout out to Stitch House for having us every Wednesday. Stitch House Brewery right here on Market Street. Chris and I are both drinking some local products. Make sure if you get a chance, come down to Stitch House, check out their selection. They always have 12 beers up on tap. Chris, what is it that you're drinking here? This is
the Liquid Assets Helles Lager.
Nice. I like it. The Helles Lager. I am drinking the Friends Wit Benefits Wit Beer. So, again, thank you for Stitch House for having it. And, yeah, let's get into it. This is fun for me because you're typically on the other side of the microphone in the Koh Show. So just to let everybody at home know, if you don't mind giving just a little brief synopsis on what the Koh Show is and kind of what you guys aim to do with it, and we'll kind of sink into the rest later. But just a quick, what is the Koh Show for those who don't know, because I'm going to get into it here in a minute, but I'd like to hear it from your mouth first.
Well, Koh Show Live is a live stream that occurs every Monday night, and we feature 2 bands every Monday. Usually they are local acts, but it's not necessarily a rule that it has to be or anything like that. We stream live on YouTube and Facebook. We usually have in a month something like 1,500 views on Facebook.
Very nice.
We have, I can speak more to the YouTube numbers than the Facebook numbers, but, we are growing the channel. We started at 0 subscribers. Now we're getting close to 300.
Nice.
It's a great way. The way I like to think about it is to give like an immortal record to a band, so that when they meet some new person at their job or something, and they say, "Oh, you play music. What do you sound like?" I want your first thing to be like, "Yeah, check out this video. This is my band playing it on Koh Show." And then I also want you to tell your mom to check it out and to and subscribe, and
That's what I love about it is the evergreen. So, we've talked about marketing and certain ideas that are evergreen. It's like once they're done, once they're up, they're there for good. They're there for a long time. And you're doing an incredible service for the community. And just for those at home, just to briefly mention, this is a little bit different than our typical small business because it's my understanding that it's a crew of volunteers who gather on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Yep. Yeah. Do you mind telling a little bit too, just about you and Michael and how this came to be, Michael Koh?
Sure. Well, there's a confluence of events that happened. First is that Michael Koh, who is my great friend and also roommate, right? Because the Koh Show is actually something we do in our house, right? In our studio, in our basement, and
immaculate vibes.
So the first thing that happens is that during the pandemic, and then kind of like maybe 2021, when people start to be less afraid to go out again and things like that, and business starts to open again, Mike starts booking bands at the Jackson Inn, right?
Okay.
Revered venue, closed down March of this year.
Legendary
sadly.
Local venue.
And during that time, he built up, sort of a reputation, and also built all these relationships with all of these bands, not just in the region, but even some touring acts and things like that. At the same time, with the pandemic slowing everything down, there was kind of like all the different bands that Mike and I play in, and, even our friends and things like that. It's kind of like we start to just kind of accumulate gear in the basement, right? As if we would have never been able to do Koh Show Live in 2021, right? But all of a sudden now, we've got stacks of compressors and amplifiers, and computer and everything else, and all of a sudden, it becomes kind of like, well, what are we really going to do with all this stuff
halfway
anyway?
to a studio,
right?
Yeah.
And so now, Mike was in a band called Dirt Bagel Fist, and they used to practice.
Dirt Bagel Fist.
Dirt Bagel Fist.
Oh wow.
Yeah, a little.
That's a powerful name.
Yeah, a little bonkers name, but they used to practice every Monday night.
Okay.
And one night, one of the guys, kind of the leader of that band, June, he says, wouldn't it be cool if we like started streaming our band practices on Twitch, right? So he brings over a couple webcams and things like that, set them up, and we did that for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm not even in that band, but they asked me to come down and just control the camera switching, right? And I said, sure, I could do that. And it was funny because at first too, I was like, well, I'm not just going to sit here and do nothing. I used to bring like a tambourine out and play with them and stuff until everyone was like, Chris, you got to stop doing that.
Yeah, I'm the percussion ad as well.
And then and then we had a buddy who plays in a band called Penny Death. And we said, this was like maybe the 3rd week, 4th week, something like that. We said, how about we'll have Dirt Bagel Fist play and then Penny Death play.
Okay.
And so we did that, and then we were watching the footage after the practice, and kind of like we're all gathered around, and I think it was me. I like to take credit for it. I said to the guys, did we just kind of create Delaware MTV in our basement, you know? And, well, it kind of turned out we did.
Yeah.
And so that was back in like January or February.
Wow.
And so now we're in October now, and except for like a month ago when me and another guy were both sick, we haven't missed an episode.
Yeah.
We did have like a clip show on like a holiday, like July 4th or something like that. But other than that, we haven't missed a Monday.
Yeah, I remember seeing your post a couple weeks ago about like we just hit 50 bands, like 50 local artists. And again, to kind of tie this back to small business, for those who aren't in the music world, this is like a what we call top down, right? You had an idea and you just started doing it. And then, we'll talk about in a few minutes, like where are you picturing going in the future? But ultimately, a lot of times it starts with one person. They slowly grow, and as they find success, they add one more, and as they find success, they add one more. This feels a lot like, you had a bunch of people. You already had the group, the staff, the videographers, the musicians, all these people, and it was kind of like a top-down idea. But yeah, so I was saying, so you hit 50 bands. I was starting to go through, because I know a lot of the bands you guys bring on.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, I should have at least a reference of a couple, because, one of the goals of this series, and sorry to hog the mic here for a minute, but one of the goals of the series is to blend local artists and musicians with the small business community. Delaware has lawyers, doctors, financial advisors, all these people in this area who are always looking for some sort of something a little bit special, a little bit unique. And then, of course, we have all these musicians, great talent, who are maybe are lacking resources. And so I started looking at the list, and this is just the last, 40 days, right? We got Tree Walker and Edgewater the last week. Yeah. We got Kitty Rotten, Big Skull, A Summer Storm, The Bubble, Diaphone, Brig Aurora, Gunpowder Milkshake, Why We Wait, Single Bullet Theory, and The Bullets on the same night, Shawarma Boy, Maxwell Stein, Candle Wax, Castle Adam, Odyssey, Von Holden, J.D. Webb, Katie Dill, Judgmental Records, Mothman Properties, Naughty G's, Lester Pearl. This is just back to September 15th. And I just can't, I started writing
Some of those are actually in the future, I think.
Some of these are in the future.
Yeah.
All right, which ones we got coming up? Kitty Rotten and Big Skull is next week.
Big Skull is coming up. Shawarma Boy, I don't think has happened yet.
Okay, Shawarma Boy. Thanks for the correction, for sure. I was kind of going back in their Facebook, but just to give a small snapshot of these, you guys have kind of become like a library cataloging Delaware musicians, or at least local musicians, not all from Delaware. And that's the thing that kind of relates it back to the small business world, which is you're doing something that is clearly filling a niche that people are clearly loving. I was on Koh Show back in August. I went on there. I felt like a rock star. I was like, look at this. I'm getting the videos and the feature. And it was what you guys are doing is incredible, and it's an example of the top down. So do you mind talking a little bit more about so you have this great crew, you have this great idea. Where do you guys see this heading?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, in the more immediate future, one of the ways I see it growing is sort of being involved with or even throwing our own actual live events, things that aren't going on in the basement, but an actual live show. Could be a fundraiser or something like that. But even recently, let's say we have a friend, Melissa Forsyth, and she puts together these live events. Ginger Fox Productions is
Okay,
And
gotcha.
so let's say we were sort of in association with Ginger Fox this past summer,
Right.
when she hosted a series of maybe like 7 shows. It was like basically a battle of the bands that continued on all throughout the summer. And, you know, we were involved in that and promoting it. Michael Koh himself was out there like doing sound for some of these events and things like that.
Right.
You know, so I see sort of like an obvious progression could be like, let's say there's an event like that going on, and they actually kind of are like, wouldn't it be cool if Koh Show came out and kind of like brought some cameras and documented some of this, you know?
So it sounds
things
like a lot
that.
on the production side. Obviously, you guys have the roster of original musicians. One of the things I loved about the show, for those who are watching, is it's original music. It's you said that in the email where it's like, make sure you bring original music, not just for copyright. I'm going to say not just for copyright reasons, but because it's cool to do original music.
Yes.
But no, and I love the direction, and I don't mean to obviously be like, oh, it's not good. It's good enough right now to keep that rolling. But I was just wondering, like, as a crew, have you guys talked about? So you say events, starting to do a lot of the more production side on live events and things like that. And then I guess too, like, I always ask, is there a way that the community can help support you guys? Of course, you know, you can find the Koh Show here, can learn more about it here and down here. I'm going to put the captions in later.
Sure.
But beyond us watching the Koh Show, sharing the Koh Show, and supporting the artists, is there anything that you, like, are you guys looking for community partners? Is there anything you guys have talked about that, you know, you would like to do down the road with, like the Wilmington or the greater Delaware area, city, state events, anything like that?
I mean, I don't have anything specific about that, but you know, partnerships would be something we would be willing to entertain. I mean, one of the things that we do too is that, like, we already sort of sometimes plug some other local businesses and who are sort of like friends and you know, fellow travelers in a way. So, for example, we are sort of in a friendship with Autumn Arch Brewery, which is in Newark, right?
Tony, right?
Yeah, Tony. And so sometimes he'll come around and he'll bring a little sampling of beers that we can try.
Nice.
Just the other night, this was last night. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but a bunch of Koh Show crew went out, and we basically had a tour of that brewery and a taste testing, and we brought some cameras out and everything.
Wow.
And so, and this is all material that a lot of times can go in our intermission. Like in between, we usually have 2 bands every night, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we, you know, put together an intermission that can have like kind of like, sometimes there have been like almost like little comedy sketches or little things like that. But sometimes it's also promoting other local businesses and things like that. And so, you know, we don't really have a lot of that in our minds right now. You know, none of that is necessarily monetized, right? So it's almost like, you know, if you just ask us, we'll give you a little plug, you know.
Right.
But you know, but I would love to have more engagement like that, you know, where we have people who, you know, organizations that have our back and we have your back, and we're all kind of folding it together with each other.
Yeah, there's always, and we know this trope all too well as musicians, but there's always the, like, you have something genuine and beautiful while it's volunteer, while it's people putting their hearts in. And as soon as, you know, you do start to monetize something, that's when
changes the nature.
Changes the nature. You lose some of your credibility on what you're doing. Like, I made the joke earlier, it's like, you know, Koh Show, sponsored by insert major brand here, would not be the same, you know. It wouldn't feel like a local MTV. It would feel like...
it's like what happened in Wayne's World.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Oh, my God. In the basement, the whole connection. Yeah, who's the Rob Lowe out there that wants to create the problems? Wow. So being a showcase obviously is valuable in its in its own right. I don't want to rack your brain too much, and I don't want you to pick favorites. But was there a particular show in the last year since January that really stood out as like emblematic, I believe is the word, of like what you guys are trying to achieve vibe-wise? Like, you don't even have to mention the band so much, but was there something that really stood out to you as like, man, this night, this is why we do what we do?
There have been a couple magic nights.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to name one.
I know,
but
it's like asking
you ever see those
yeah.
internet videos where someone's like, they like a ranking list, and it'll be it'll rank from like C to like S class,
Right.
and it's like there have been a couple S class nights with like
Right.
S class performances, where
Right.
like, and what's really cool too, as a musician and a music lover, there's really something special. You can go out to a bar or a venue and see a band. It's really delightful
Right.
when they're 10 feet from me, and I get to
Yeah.
like hang out with them
Totally,
and stuff, and I get to interview them and
I know,
then tell jokes with them and everything like that. It's a lot of fun, and I've said to some people that like there's a funny thing, like as like a Catholic schoolboy, right? That like you used to have like teachers who were priests, and
Right,
they tell you about you're going to do reconciliation, and you're like an 11-year-old kid, and you're like, am I actually about to tell you, my teacher, all the bad stuff that I've done?
Right.
And the teachers, but they would tell you that like there's a magical grace that comes over them that magically
Right.
makes them forget all the stuff.
Right.
Now that I'm a little bit older, I don't know if I fully believe that anymore. But there's an idea to it where like I feel like a lot of times it's almost like the band that's playing in front of me is kind of at the moment like I'm sort of under a magic spell,
Right,
and
I
like
got
you're
it.
sort of like my favorite band at this very moment, you
Yeah.
know. Now that aside, there have been some bands that have been really killer,
Now,
for
I
just
think
objectively.
that was a very diplomatic answer. And this series is not hardball. I am not trying to stump people. But I asked because I was like, should I put a link here for a good example of what people can expect? Or would you just recommend just tune in on Monday? 8 o'clock, right, is when the first band starts?
Yeah.
Okay.
8 o'clock, usually on the dot, but sometimes it's
Yeah.
8:02. You know.
Because through the magic of video editing, I get to like point to links and put
Yeah.
whatever I want wherever I'd like, right? So I
Sure.
guess that was and I did surprise you a little bit with that one. I should have given you a chance to think about it.
No, that's not surprising to me.
Okay,
I'm sure
okay.
you can go harder.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
ready for it. I mean, one of the things is that like
Let's get into late '90s Wilmington politics. No, I'm just
right.
kidding.
I mean, one of the things is that there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
But not necessarily on the same night. So
Yeah,
like
true,
sometimes we
true.
do try to book bands logically so that it's not like
Right.
a folk act followed by a metal band.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like if we say to the audience, just tune in and see what's
Yeah.
going on, Well,
Yeah.
you might tune in on a night when it's kind of a genre that isn't your thing.
Yep.
But
yep.
but if you were to come back next week, it would be like a totally different vibe and everything.
That's
so.
what I love about it, the showcase element. The like this is, it's not like a Pied Piper leading people anywhere. It's like each week it's different. You're going in a different town. I'm beating an analogy up here. Different town with different mice and a different flute song.
Yeah.
It's neat. It's very neat.
And every once in a while, too, sometimes it just doesn't work out so that we actually have a very strange pairing of
Right,
acts.
right.
And sometimes those are even the most fun, to have
Yeah.
that sort of cross-pollination. And sometimes you can get some, really interesting comments from, say, someone who tuned in to see their friend's metal band play
Right.
and then watch this kind of like totally different act afterwards,
yeah.
but still be like, yo, this is really cool,
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun too.
I love that. Well, just to make sure we get at least one good Koh Show commercial in here, you have Kitty Rotten's the one coming up this Monday.
As is my understanding.
As is my understanding.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they are with Big Skull, Kitty Rotten and Big Skull. If they're not this Monday, they're the following. But
I
you
think
can
they
check
are. I
out the
think they are
Koh
this
Show
one.
right here. You can check them out every Monday. You guys go live at
8 p.m.
8 p.m. That's the first band, and the
Mhm.
second band is at 9 p.m. Is
Yep.
that right?
And you can also check out, we just maybe within the last month have actually launched a website now, and that's kohshow.live.
Beautiful.
And so you can go to kohshow.live. It will link. You can link to our YouTube, our Facebook, our Instagram. There's even like a Spotify playlist on there that just like, because so many of the bands that we feature, you know, they have their own releases, their own albums on Bandcamp, Spotify,
Totally.
things like that, right? So we even have a playlist, you know, featuring songs from a lot of the different bands that we featured.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, I definitely have plans to bring you back in the future, catch up on the updates and everything. I love this series. I as a musician in the area for almost 20 years, I've always wanted to see something like this. And when I heard about what you were doing, and you know, we didn't get into it, but Chris and I have known each other for a very long time. Grew up right here in the Wilmington area together. But I've Wilmington. That's what this series is definitely about. There is a Delaware pride element that goes on here. Delaware is a great scene, great music, great artists, and even the bands who come from out of town, when they come in, I feel like they're very warmly embraced by the rest of the scene too. But yeah, you know, what you guys are doing is really, really incredible. And from a small business perspective, I know that this story is going to get better and better and better. But just from like a music scene, original artists, doing the proper showcases, like it's already such a great story. Is there anything else before we wrap up here? Is there anything else you want to mention about Koh Show or any events coming up? Any shout-outs or anything like that?
I did have a sort of funny story prepared.
Oh, please.
You'd kind of asked, before when we were catching up before this, you said, you know, you might ask me about a question about a time that something went wrong or something like
my
that,
favorite
right?
question. I
Yeah.
forgot my favorite
Yeah,
question. You're so cheery.
yeah.
But please, tell
So,
me.
well, you know, here's the thing, right? This is a live stream, so things can go wrong when it's live, right?
We'll do it live.
Right? And one of the funniest things that went wrong was semi-disastrous, but we recovered very quickly. Was, so, you know, because we basically have a music studio, you know, for audio and video recording in our basement. And our basement wasn't necessarily made to have all the power solution so readily available to us to do all the things we needed to do. And as a result of that, there was a light bulb with a drawstring over our washer and dryer that had a connection with like kind of like an extension cord. And one day, one of the bands that played, and as is normal, sometimes people will bring a friend or two or something like that. No big deal. And as a band was playing and we were live streaming, the fellow decided that he wanted more appropriate mood lighting for the the peanut gallery. So he walked right up to that light bulb, pulled the string, and cut our entire feed, like wiped out our computers and everything. And I mean, you know, it was almost like it was a big WTF moment.
Right.
You know.
What month was it? Do you remember roughly the month? Like, how far into your series were you when this happened?
I mean, I think this would have been at least 4 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, our solution was we had a handyman friend who came in and basically, So basically, there is no drawstring there anymore or anything like that. But it's funny the things that can happen that you know, when you're going live. I mean, here's another thing. Like, when you are live streaming, there are algorithms, let's call them, that are screening the content because they want to basically shut you down if you're doing copyright infringement. And that, you know, and this is one of the reasons that we're asking people not to do covers, because I know of at least 2 incidents where Facebook has cut or they didn't take the feed down, they muted it.
They muted it. Wow.
They muted it.
Is that Meta muted it? Was it you got to? I think I've seen those messages through the Meta suite. So your Koh Show Live is a business account, and here's a little, business accounts are much, much, much higher scrutinized for copyright infringement.
Right. I mean, we still get noticed. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's because here's the thing, right? In some of these situations, because some of the artists that we feature are, business minded, professional enough.
Yeah.
Have their own material copyrighted.
Right.
Of course, they are willingly coming on our show to play their material.
Right.
So we have their permission.
Yeah.
The algorithm doesn't know that.
Right.
So you run into situations like that,
Yeah.
Even like someone who makes beats and they sampled Mary J. Blige in one of their beats, that'll get noticed by the algorithm. you know?
Right. Wow, that's so interesting. Well, and that's also an incredible story. A little reminder that sometimes when you think you're helping, you should ask. You should, especially in production, when it comes to switches and lights, ask in a production squad. But yeah, that's a quick way to go from like someone being thoughtful to, oh my gosh, you may have just ruined the whole thing. But wow, that's a great story. And Chris, thank you so much for joining me. Again,
Absolutely.
you guys can check out the Koh Show every Monday. First band goes on at 9. First band goes on at 8. Second band goes on at 9. And yeah, outside of that, share it with your friends. Just like small business, local artists need help too. All of the promotions, all the shares, all the likes, all that stuff is free things you guys can do to support your local arts and music community. It's the arts and music community too that works with the small business community to make basically Wilmington, Market Street, this whole area. I mean, we could get into a whole conversation about how venues will lift up an area, will provide traffic for food vendors, will provide, safety by things are happening actively. All this stuff works in cohesion. So arts and music is essential to healthy small business growth. I thought you wanted to say something.
Nope.
Okay, and so yeah, support your local artists, support your local businesses, and definitely check out Koh Show on Monday nights. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I want to thank Stitch House for having us. That's it for week 6 of It's Business Time. Have a good one, everybody.